rather than trying to fulfill every wish and fantasy, fulfill your fantasy and find your joy and bring that into your restaurant and your cafe or wherever it is, and focus on that. Don't try to be everything for everyone. Just do it for you, and that will flow through into the rest of the business.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are talking about staffing, but from a rather different perspective. We're talking about it from the perspective of someone who has worked in and loved and struggled with the industry for 30 years and is now doing something else. Her name is Marika Oost. She's worked in all different arenas in hospitality. A lot of you will have eaten her food when she was Karen Martini's head chef. Marika, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thanks very much, Dani. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm super excited. Such a great opportunity, and Well,
I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm just thrilled with what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm really thrilled to have the opportunity to speak to you. I know that it's going to be a great conversation because you have so much to say and you're such a thoughtful person. But I want to start with not so much your thoughts, but your aching muscles. Can you tell me how you're feeling in your body today?
Yeah. So for those who are listening, I started at the local meatworks and I haven't worked for 8 months by choice initially and then because of COVID. And today I am exhausted. Like every part of me is aching. My fingernails have disappeared and they were once long. Yeah, it was a pretty big day.
That's really full on. What's your role at the Meatworks? What are you actually doing?
Yeah, so yesterday I was actually up on the sort of high area and I was cryo-vacuuming all day long for 8 hours. It was a pretty mind-boggling experience for me. Just it's okay getting packets of meat and all of that when you're opening up cartons for stocks and sauces. It's a whole other kettle of fish when you've got white cotton gloves on and they're stained through with blood and you're literally surrounded with carcasses. So it was kind of really, almost like an awakening, the other side of it. And I'm sort of, still really geared up over it.
Yeah, well, it sounds really confronting and something that most people will never experience. Is it cattle work? Is it a cattle works that you're at?
Yeah, so it's a cattle and lamb works, and it's been around for over 70 odd years, and it's such an impressive operation. Everything is so I can't believe the order and just the connectivity of everyone. It's such a massive operation that, of course, if anything goes wrong, it's livestock at hand. And that's what I've come away with. And, although it's hard and I guess kind of what people would think is gross, tedious labor, but for me, it's just encouraged me to want to sort of get into all aspects of it. I want to see every area and really, learn those knife skills again and take that into my future. If that sounds a little bit it really, I'm looking forward to my next shift, if that helps.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. I mean, I think it says a lot about you as a person, and you sent me something you've written about your early days as a chef, when you first worked as a waitress, hated it, sort of elbowed your way into the kitchen and never looked back, or, didn't look back for a while. And in that you also talked about that intense curiosity and that thirst for learning and for achieving for attaining a certain level of skill and being able to apply that. So I hear that in your voice when you're talking about the meatworks as well.
Yeah, it does. It transfers into all areas of my life, I think. But countering that balance with joy and, countering it with everybody else's expectations, I guess, has been my biggest journey and why I've ended up in the spot I'm in, I guess.
Well, let's dig a little bit deeper into that. So, I mean, you've had a long career and you've done so many different things, but give us the summary and take us through to the time when you thought, well, you know what, I can't actually be in this industry anymore.
Yeah, sure. So, I've got the usual, worldly, I guess, experience. Started off in 5-star hotels, and I guess, of course, there's a lot of discipline there. There's a lot of people to maintain your energy, I guess. And if you shine, you get to shine really well. And so I had opportunities, to do lots of different competitions and all of that sort of stuff. I really kind of loved the hotel aspect of it. Then took off overseas and realised that there was a whole new world, just like everybody else. And came back and really sunk my teeth, I guess, into the Melbourne scene. Yeah, with the Melbourne Wine Room, and Karen, opened up a world of opportunities for me, and I'm, forever grateful. Yeah, sort of one of those unknown sort of chefs, I guess. And I've always said, I want to have that voice from the trenches, because we're not all, rising rock stars and all of that. We're grit and kind of grind, and, not a lot of highlight, I guess. And chasing those accolades is exactly what, yeah, took me out in the end. And so had the kids, and that was a real struggle, listening to, yeah, sort of Kate Bartholomew's story about postnatal depression and all the rest of it. I guess that was the kind of, yeah, big turning point for me. Um,
You also experienced postnatal depression?
Absolutely. Yeah, I sort of didn't admit that to anyone in the earlier years, Dani, but I certainly do now, and I'm a great advocate for talking about how challenging it is for women in the industry, where we are still kind of few and far between, and we're rising strong, but no one kind of talks about the fact that by having children, you almost, in a way, talk yourself out of the industry as well, unless you've got those opportunities that present, yeah, yeah, present a way to keep going and keep being successful like that. I had to certainly look at different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you do? I mean, was did you have your first kid when you were working at the Melbourne Wine Room?
Yeah, that's right. So in 2006, I had my first little girl, and then in 2008, I had a little boy. And yeah, so I worked, for 5 months or so on that big charcoal grill that everyone's remembers, the beautiful, steaks that used to come off that fabulous grill, with this big old belly. And then I obviously took, maternity leave in essence. I left the wine room and had no other destination. And I worked at the markets. I opened up, a tiny little market stall, and I sold croissants and, all sorts of rhubarb baklava cakes, and, just tried to make ends meet with the baby strapped to my back and rolling croissants at 4 a.m. And then I started selling those into local cafes around Kyneton and the Macedon Ranges, and just tried to keep my finger on the pulse as much as possible. And then that sort of culminated in opening up a small cafe and food store, which was the Village Larder in Wood End.
Yeah, I know it's hard to disentangle these things, but do you feel like it was that that I guess pressure and that keeping going mentality that kicked you into the depression, or do you feel like it's just something that was going to happen no matter what, and the working circumstances didn't help you sort of get through it?
That's a really, really good question. Look, again, I can familiarise with a lot of your previous guests. I had obsessive compulsive disorder, still do as a child, anxiety, panic disorder growing up, anorexia, all of these things. Certainly not hiding any of that. I fell into the kitchen because it absolutely suited my, I guess, manic disposition in a lot of ways. It was my first time I experienced family. And so, yeah, it was really, really about being tribe strong. And I understood that if I kept turning up, I would keep having that consistent family around me on a really sort of integral level, spiritual level. And then, of course, you buy into the ego of it all as well. And yes, I didn't want to be considered a failure because I'd had children, or made the choice to have children. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it's so full on, and I mean, as you say, you only sort of in retrospect admitted to the postnatal depression. Is it something that you had treatment for at the time, or you just sort of battled through and somehow came out of the tunnel?
No, I absolutely just battled through, to the point where I could go to go to maternal health appointments, and I guess fib my way through the fact that life was perfectly fine. It was quite difficult, and I know now that very damaging. that behaviour was as well. So basically, the postnatal depression, I guess, did force me to keep on moving. And it also kind of destroyed my relationship as well. And having the business was just another stressor on top of that. I had 2 young toddlers, one barely out of nappies and one just, who had been used to a mama at home for the first 3 years of her life. And then she was straight into daycare pretty much full time. So there was a lot of guilt around also, trying to run a business 24 hours a day as well.
That just sounds like a situation that was bound to come to some kind of crunch. So yeah, what happened?
I couldn't. Look, I do agree with you. The problem is, for me, I guess I never could understand how I was going to do anything else to change that aspect for me.
Yeah.
It was a struggle, and unfortunately, through that the business was really hard to maintain, and I lost the best friend of my life as well through that business, just because everything was always being dealt with on a level of constant fractious edge rather than joy.
Yeah. Wow. And I guess that's not the energy that you want to put into food and hospitality, at any level. But it's certainly,
No, but through all of that, I did do that despite it.
I guess that's a testament to you and to your skills and your dedication. But I guess that's also an added strain, isn't it? Where I guess that's that pride that makes it hard to admit that perhaps you're doing things that aren't working for you holistically.
Yeah, there was no realism at all. And it was all expectation. And 5 years sort of further down the track, I realised that the expectation was actually being set mostly by me, especially when I had my own business, and that I did have choices, although I never took them because I was never brave enough because of the potential fallout.
Wow.
Just discussing, long hours and what I needed to survive and keep going in the business.
So tell me, yeah, let's draw a line between that and today and how you've ended up cryovacking meat at a cattle works.
Yeah, so that journey was really it was quite a tumultuous path to get to the happiness that I am today. The last position I held was in a little boutique hotel, and I was really, gunning, I guess, for, you know, that last chance for potentially breaking into the Sydney set. And I know that sounds very ego driven, and that's exactly what it really was. I saw great opportunity and I was taking it all. Unfortunately, the unravelling had started obviously way before then, and I was continuing an uphill battle whilst also, losing the relationship that I was now in and turning up and holding all of that. And so I basically made the big decision to run away, and that's pretty much what it was. I ran away to Queensland and I left everything and everyone behind, including my 2 kids, which was devastating. And I sort of just immersed myself in sunshine and water and healing. And then COVID happened, and that sort of pushed a whole lot of other things forward. And I needed to get out of the space I was in anyway. I was in a particularly bad spot at that time. And found my way back to Melbourne eventually, and 100% better and on the path of joy and making decisions that don't compromise my needs anymore, really. And that I guess has been the greatest journey and the greatest strength, and it's still a continuous one. But I was feeling pretty broken.
So you've had an interesting pandemic then, in that you've come from Queensland to Melbourne, where a lot of people have gone the other direction, and you've had a period where you've sort of got yourself more together rather than the unraveling that many people have experienced through this time of extraordinary change and stress. So what is it that you sort of put back together? What's the shape of the positivity that you've been able to find?
Yeah, wow, huge question. I put myself back together in a very short answer, I got myself into a position where I just had no identity anymore. I had completely lost myself to industry. I couldn't think of myself, and I've heard, many of your other guests sort of say the same thing, in that, yeah, I couldn't think of myself as any other way. I was lost. I didn't know how to be anyone other than a chef. I brought my kitchen mentality into my home life, which is, it just didn't work at all. That's not how you have a healthy and responsive and understanding relationship. So these are also lessons that I've learned by, I guess, and I call it the softening. I really, I've lost, I had a very, I guess, emasculated identity. I found it so hard as a female that in essence and I like to say, and I grown a set of balls over the years, and I basically needed to not have that set anymore. I needed to find my femininity and my softness and the understanding that I didn't need to be so harsh in the world to be heard. So it's been a very big journey, including being able to hold my children in a way that I've never been able to hold them before. And, my friends, and, I'm not close with my family. My friends are my family. And through becoming more intuitive to myself and taking myself on this journey and really facing the really dark aspects of myself, I've opened up a world of happiness. And it has only been capable, I guess I've only been capable of doing this by leaving the industry because it's giving me the space. So COVID was perfect timing for me. I was already edging out, and it's just allowed me to solidify what it is I want, and what it is I don't want regarding the industry, I guess.
Wow.
Sorry, that's a lot of words.
Well, it's pretty full on. I mean, it's an incredible like personal transformation and journey that you're describing. Tell me a bit more about that chef attitude that you brought into the household.
Yeah, sure. So I guess it really, began so many years ago in that, as a young chef, you start to shed your normal friends and things like that. And, you start to party and hang out with more chefs and industry folk than anyone else. And you end up meeting people in the industry as well. So I met my husband, and he was not in the industry, but I basically remember saying to him, well, if you really want to hang out, this is probably not going to work unless you kind of get an industry job or whatever, which is so ridiculous to hear myself say that out loud, but I do recall saying that. In the end, he was already working in pubs and had no direction anyway, and did end up in hospitality. But yeah, over the years, I guess, that turned a little bit toxic, and obviously with the business we were working together, and yeah, I guess that attitude of being in charge and telling people what to do, and all of that transferred a little bit too much into my personal life. Um, yeah, it was difficult. And then again, that behaviour, obviously you have your own demons and repetitive childhood issues and all the rest of it. But in essence, I carried that through a number of relationships until it affected my last relationship, to the point of, great soul damage for two people. And that in and of itself has been a great, energy behind my own personal healing, because I just didn't want to hurt anyone else with my shit anymore. And I knew that the industry, after speaking to numerous psychologists over the years, that the industry was a huge part of my problem, because I was just so entrenched and entrapped in the culture of it. Yeah, so again, that softening was really important to me, and it's allowed me to actually learn how to be a human again, instead of a robotic machine and just on autopilot all the time and just reactive all the time. It's been a huge change. I feel like a new woman, honestly. Dani is the yeah, is the positivity out of it all.
Do you think that it's something like you experienced the industry, or you've made you yeah the industry has been this thing for you that didn't allow you to be the person that you need to be. Do you think that that's intrinsic to hospitality, or do you think that you found the things that you sort of needed at the time, that sort of tribalism, that immersion? I mean, do you think there's another way of being in the industry? Do you think there's another way that you could possibly reapproach it and let it do different things for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In no way in my mind will I ever stop being a chef. My greatest dream is, honestly, to do an Annalise Gregory and just live my best life. Writing the menus I want to write, and yeah, doing all of that. And I will do that. That's part of my future. I guess intrinsically, I just don't want to do it for anyone else anymore for so little thanks. I think there is a different way to be in the industry for sure. And it is, solidly built on enough staff. It's solidly built on the understanding that even though we're good at our jobs and it's demanding, we're human, and that we need to have some downtime. And I just think job sharing for a start would be an incredible way to start, to begin those conversations. There are some people who really like working nights. There are some people who really love working days. Can we look at the kitchen differently? Can we do full on prep shifts? And a lot of these kitchens do work like that, but it needs to be more around our lifestyle and our joy factors, so that when we come to work we're joyful, and when we leave work we're also joyful.
Mm. Can you talk
Mm.
about the place of creativity in your personal development?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so it's creativity for me has always been an integral part of my life. My grandmother was, an amazing artist right up until the moment she was blind. And teaching people how to paint, it really, formed, yeah, I guess that side of me. I did not see myself as an artist or anything other, in any other way creative, up until I stopped being a chef. As a chef, the creativity for me, um, the best way to explain it is I'm pretty on the spectrum, I guess. And I say pretty on the spectrum because I don't need someone to tell me to know that I am. And I'm very comfortable with that experience because it really formulated how I look at things, and the reasons why I cook and what I put on the plates and how I layer things, from palettes and texture and all of those things that we love to eat. Yeah, that is transferred into, I guess, becoming and wanting to be an artist, which I paint every day. Over COVID, I've painted over 80 paintings, all very dedicated around the world of communication and transition, how we affect each other in the world, and those sort of things. And I've also finally bought a camera for the first time, which I've wanted since I was a little girl, and that has become, I guess, a bit of a cliche, but a lens to a different world for me. And that moment of understanding that I was more than just a chef, but that I was really articulate as an artist, happened in the ocean in Queensland. And I've got quite long dreadlocks. Well, they're a bit multifunctional, and the hair's a bit multifunctional at the moment, which is also a part of the softening. I used to dye my hair and shave it and be crazy, and now I haven't done a thing with it for the last 3 years by choice. It's washed and healthy. It's just a part of the undoing, I guess. But I was in the ocean and I was swamped by this amazing wave, and I love being in the water. It's very cathartic for me. I came home and drew my first picture, and I never stopped since.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah, it's been pretty huge.
Um, how are things with the kids now?
Oh, my children, they're just the most beautiful, soul-filled children. My little baby's soul and the T-man. So they're kids who have been through a lot. They're hospitality kids. Lots of people will be able to, I guess, familiarise. Or be, yeah, empathetic of that. There've been kids who've grown up under kitchen benches and all sorts of things, and they've seen their mother and father fall apart. They've seen other relationships, of mine in particular, fall apart quite badly, and then, you know, journey back together again. And through all of that, they've been the most resilient, incredible little people I could ever imagine. I have a very different viewpoint on motherhood, which is quite unusual, I guess. First of all, I left my children, and that's an interesting dynamic because it's usually men who leave, you know, isn't it? You know, not women, and so that in the first instance. And then, yeah, so, but what leaving did was allow me to come back to them as a whole person. I was very honest about my situation with them when I wasn't feeling good. I really said, look, kids, I'm not feeling good right now, or, you know, we need to do this or we need to do that, or very, very, very practical. And they haven't not been hurt. I'm under no illusion that, you know, they'll be in therapy when they're 30 and demanding that I answer their questions, which I'll more than happily do, of course. And I have a beautiful relationship with them now. My daughter is the most creative little child, you know, little girl. She's 14 and just growing into this, you know, just organically beautiful young woman. My son is exactly like me. He's eclectic and a little on the edgy side, and battles with a lot of things unless he's out in the elements. And he's just a super cool kid. I'm very lucky to have them. So you know, from a motherhood perspective, I think I just guide them now. I have a saying that they're off my boob, so, you know, and I'm just there to help them.
Yeah. What would you say to yourself? Like, you were pretty much a kid when you first started working in restaurants. What would you say to to that girl just starting out, if you could have a word in her ear now?
Yeah, I'd say be kind to yourself. Actually, listen to yourself a lot more. What is it that you really want instead of listening to what everybody else is sort of determining for you? Find your own spirit and your own dreams, and never forget that you're important in the world, because I just simply forgot that I mattered. And the self love aspect of it for me has been, you know, a huge journey. You know, I've only just been able to look myself in the mirror properly and hold people's, you know, eyesight. Which is, you know, very, very much down to confidence. And I was very confident in the kitchen and not confident anywhere else in my life, but people thought I was. And so I would say be brave and be vulnerable and bloody bodacious.
I love it. It is incredibly brave of you to leave that environment and to, I guess, risk that sort of unbuttoning of yourself, and trust that you were going to be able to put yourself back together somehow. And I suppose also just that unknown, like to not quite know who you were going to put yourself back together to be.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I didn't know who I was and at all, and through this journey, I've just found that I'm kind of a good person that's worth loving. And if nothing else comes of it, that's a really valuable, yeah, and worthy journey for me. That I'm okay in the world, and I don't need kind of anything else or anyone else. If that's the case, you know, if that's the way it is to be, that I'm okay in this kind of, yeah, ebb and flow, and yeah, just vibing high, really.
You know, a lot of people go
Mm.
into the industry looking for that family, looking for that connection, and you know they get, I guess, swallowed up by the all encompassing nature of it. You know, it becomes your work life, it becomes your social life. It's just sort of always there, and you know you can do it in any city or any country around the world. It's sort of always there for you to slip into as a safe space, even though it can be a damaging space for people, certain people at certain times in certain circumstances. So what would you say to people who are in the industry, whether they're workmates or their employers? Like, what, you know, how can people, I guess, look at one another as humans, and help? How can we help one another along this journey in a way that's, I guess, is sustaining and nourishing, not damaging?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to fundamentally work out why it is that the industry, why we started. You know, it was for nurturing. It was for all of those really delicious parts of life, feeding people, nurturing, dancing with fire on pans. There's a real spirit in the kitchen and on the floor that can't be found anywhere else, and we need to tap into that vibrancy. But tired people can't provide that vibrancy every day. So I think the conversation needs to be around honesty. We're not built, none of us are built to work 12-hour days. We all do it because that's the expectation. But how can we achieve these great things without exhausting ourselves to the point of devastation? We need to minimize our menus. We need to focus on the simplicity of produce, and we can do that in all aspects of cooking. It doesn't matter what genre we're thinking about. But if we just earth back to the reasons that we began, and the fact that this food and the animals just honestly come from the earth, then in an elementary point of view we come full circle, and by minimizing we become full. That's how I see it. Rather than trying to fulfill every wish and fantasy, fulfill your fantasy and find your joy, and bring that into your restaurant and your cafe or wherever it is, and focus on that. Don't try to be everything for everyone. Just do it for you, and that will flow through into the rest of the business.
Mm. You're really creating a picture for me of a beautiful like cafe or cozy restaurant that I really want to be in. Like it just feels so good
Mm.
to be there. Can you talk a little bit about that business that you're going to create, that you're going to own, and yeah, what are you going to do there? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to be like to walk in there?
Yeah, sure. This is where I might get teary, I guess, because the dream has been for so long to be certainly out somewhere quite rural. I would like it to be a destination area. I always feel mountains, but I'm so drawn to the sea. So there's a bit of a moment there, but it will certainly be a space where people will want to be, because it'll be where I want to be, and full of the things that I love, right from the wisteria trees growing around, the very simple house that I want to live in, to the kitchen space, which will be a separate area altogether, so that the long-term dream, of course, is to have produce and potentially, animals and all of that sort of thing, so that I can create a business where, as my garden and my produce eventuates, I will cycle dinners and events around that, also inclusive of my art and my love of music, a really interactive and space, wonderful space full of energy for people to just sit with food, sit with friends, and sit with love and enjoy, a beautiful space that I've created. you know that's the dream I've got. I collect antiques and kitchenalia. I've been doing that for the odd 25 years. They're all packed away in boxes, so the feeling of the place is already done. It's just a matter of building myself financially, of course, as everyone does, to feed the dream further. And it's slow goings, but I think I'm hopefully going to start back on that path again, whilst also finding joy instead of, terror, which is good. Mm.
I can really feel that place.
But I see it and I feel it.
Yeah, I can feel it too. I'm coming. It sounds really beautiful. Marika, let's finish off by you telling me a dish that I don't know, just something that's really expresses where you're at right now. Tell me about tell me what you'd cook if I came over.
Yeah, absolutely. So my favorite dish of my kind of, mind moment is with a skirt steak straight off the grill. There's an XO mayonnaise. There's a paw slaw. There's crispy onion rings. There's just, yeah, it's just an Asian sort of explosion, which is really unusual for me. But the earthiness of that XO is going to, bring it all together. And that sharp paw. Yeah, little crispy shallots and lots of love.
Yum. Oh my goodness. It's just, yeah, it sounds so good. And it's funny because it sort of circles us back to the meatworks.
Well, let's hope I get to serve it to you one day, Dani.
I hope so. But yeah, it circles us around to that beef and to the cattle that you're putting in bags. So you're back at the meatworks. You back there tomorrow?
I am back there tomorrow. Hopefully my aching hands and body will be a little bit less sore, but straight back into it. It's yeah.
Brilliant.
It's pretty mind numbing, but it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's part of your meditation, isn't it? To have this as part of your journey and to learn what you can there, and just to it's I guess
It honestly really is. I was talking to my flatmate last night, Dani, and I said exactly that, and he was just kind of looking at me like I was all spiritual woo woo, and I said no. It's full circle. I said I could take advantage of this. Every aspect of those animals is available to me, and I know it sounds a little bit off key, I guess, but it's such an amazing opportunity to really hone skills and an understanding of these animals and beasts that I've been using for years. And it's kind of like paying homage and respect to those beasts, for me in a way. So, yeah, with a future dream, of course, of carrying those skills further. Interesting how life works,
isn't it? It's amazing, and I think it's incredible how you're using every aspect of the actions that are put in front of you, or the life that you're creating for yourself, and you're sort of really using it to propel you further along a really worthwhile path. I'm really privileged that you have shared your story with the Dirty Linen crowd. Thank you so much for being so open, for being so brave, and for taking that journey so that we can jump on it with you for a little while. I really, I'm really, really grateful.
Oh, Dani, I'm super grateful and super privileged. You've just done so much. I've never felt more connected to my tribe over such shared sadness and, also obviously those happy moments than ever before. And it's very much thanks to you and your program, and of course the Deep in the Weeds podcast as well. So thanks so much for the opportunity. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Let's stay in touch. I want to know what happens next.
Absolutely, Dani.
All right, beautiful.
Thanks so much, Dani. I look forward to speaking to you soon.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.